every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no is a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire standing next to me. There was another in the waters holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my debt left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire standing next to me. There is another in the waters holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding, the power set me free is a grave that holds nobody. Now that power lives in me. Is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh, and I can see the count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. I count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Hey everybody, it's Alex. Thanks for joining us for another week of worship. Hope you've had a great week, that school is treating you well, that you're enjoying this awesome weather. A couple things before we get started. One, remember we are watching Harry Potter movies every Wednesday night at the Wesley. Two, Western away games we're also watching at the Wesley. And then, this season we have been talking about going deeper, whether that be in your personal relationship with Jesus or in relationships with others around you. I encourage you, if you're interested in diving deeper into your faith or into relationships with some other folks, that you join a small group. Those are still open and available. Let me know or speak to one of our student leaders about when those happen, or you can check out the post at the posted signups at the front door of the Wesley Foundation. This week we are talking about another way to go deeper. It's about how to strengthen or have a relationship with God. Some hopefully practical, applicable ways to do that. Okay, again, I forgot one other thing. If you are interested in doing a weekly discussion or prayer time or Bible study every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. at the Wesley Foundation, I will be holding a small conversation time. It's pretty fast, really laid back. There'll be gads, there'll be coffee. Hope to see you there. Okay, now on to the message. Okay, everybody, so the last few weeks we've been kind of going back to basics on what it means to be a follower of Jesus. 3 weeks ago we talked about the gospel. The week after that we talked about grace. Last week Rebecca gave an awesome message about picking up your mat and following Jesus. So this week I want to talk about what it looks like to have a relationship with Jesus. It's something that we say a lot in churchy lingo. We talk about like your relationship with Christ or your walk with Christ or your spiritual walk. But if you haven't learned about me yet, I'm all about practical application. And so if you've ever wondered what that actually looks like, or ways that you can further your relationship already, or maybe you just need a reminder, I'm going to go over a couple ways to build your relationship with Jesus. I want to start with a really cool quote that I read by C.S. Lewis. And it's kind of the summation of this entire message. C.S. Lewis wrote the Chronicles of Narnia series, and he was a really awesome Christian author that wrote in the early 20th century. If you're ever interested in kind of reading a philosophical or analytical take of Christianity, he has lots of cool books that I would definitely recommend, and I will loan to you if you are interested. But his quote is, "If you want to get warm, go near the fire." Okay, if you want to get warm, go near the fire. Pretty simple, right? He was talking about how to have a relationship with Jesus. And that is what this message is about. It's simple. If you want to grow closer to Jesus, go near to him. If you want to get warm, go toward the fire. I don't want to make it complicated. That's not what this is about. But it is a simple concept. As we desire to grow closer to Christ, all we have to do is take the next step, to seek him, to follow him, to draw nearer to him. If you have a desire to build a relationship with God, that's the essential first step, just that desire. That sets your intention and your focus. The rest is only a matter of taking regular baby steps toward God and being open to what happens. If you're like me, you've never really had a knock your socks off, Moses in the desert experience with God, where you've literally seen or heard him speaking or his presence. God is always present, but he's rarely pushy. God is not going to knock you over to get closer to you. He pursues us, but he allows us the freedom to invite him into our lives. You're likely not to wake up one morning with a certain feeling that you become friends with God, although that could happen. Like your relationship with your friends, your partner, even your mom and dad, your relationship with God takes an investment of time and attention and caring, and it's up to you to take the initiative of moving closer to God. If you want to get warm, move closer to the fire. The fire doesn't really always come toward you. It's on us to place ourselves in His presence and then wait and abide. It's rarely dramatic. You might not even feel anything at all at first. But when you do this over and over again, when you set your focus and your intention, your desire on seeking out Him and His will, the emotion and the belief will follow, and you'll begin to trust He is with you and guiding you. Don't make it hard. Think of building a relationship with God just as you would with a relationship with anyone else. Like I said, suppose you wanted to get to know a certain person better. What would you do? You would talk with them. You'd spend time with them. You'd ask other people about them. You would learn about their behavior through experiences or past experiences. This is the same approach that we have with building our relationship with Jesus. So, what are some practical ways that you can do that? Well, I'm going to give you a few ways here. First, take time daily to touch bases with God. Just like you'd shoot a text to your mom or dad or your friend, you're just taking time to shoot them a quick text, to acknowledge and give thanks for His presence. That's it. Quick prayer. Hey God, thankful that you're here with me today. Or, I am open to the possibility that God is with me today. That's step one. Step two, invite Him to come closer. Invite Him to sit with you and just hang out. It can be a prayer, it can be out loud, it can just be in your heart, just saying, hey God, I'm here, I want to be near you, come close to me. Simple step. That's two. The third one, talk. This is prayer. It can be silent, it can be with your eyes open, it can be with your eyes closed, it can be with a hat on, it can be with a hat off, it can be out loud, it can be written. Prayer is just the most personal way that you have a relationship with God. It's connecting and having a conversation with Him. You might rarely call your friend on the phone, but you could text. Some people like to write letters. Some people send gifts. Your communication, the way it looks like for you to communicate with God is super personal. It doesn't have to look the same way as everybody else. But it is important. Some days you'll feel like pouring your heart out after a hard day or after a great day or when you feel nervous. Other days, it'll just be casual chit chat. I find that those days are the hardest for me. It's easy for me to come to God with real big highs or real low lows. But it's the small chit chat, the checking in that feels different to me. And that's what I'm working on right now. You know, occasionally all you manage to do is, hey God, I'm here, please be with me. Between friends, it's all good. The fourth step is listen. So you're talking, you're also listening. Remember to make it a two-way conversation and expect to hear from God just as you would from a trusted friend. When you send a message to a friend, you expect to hear back. Doesn't always come back right away. Doesn't always come back with what you expected. But there's typically a response. And that's the same with God. If we're talking with Him, we also have to sit and listen. And this can be hard because there's no quick timeline for what that is or what that looks like. It requires us to have patience, requires us to have faith. But as we do this more and more, we start to build that trust that there will be a response. Or we learn to sharpen our ear to listen for God closely. We see Him moving in ways that maybe we didn't before. You know, God wants you to know how much He loves you. He wants to offer support and guidance to you. And if we don't take the time to listen, then we usually won't hear His still small voice, as Scripture says. For me, this communication with God comes in many forms. It can be just a thought I have that comes out of nowhere, or feeling, or through music, or sometimes in reading. A big one for me also is in nature. I see God moving a lot in nature and His creation, or even through other people or in circumstances. Sometimes and oftentimes I only recognize God's voice in hindsight. But that's okay. That's part of the relationship. It's deeply personal and intimate. It doesn't look the same for everybody, but it requires us to practice listening and to be present when we listen. The fifth one is kind of similar to one before. It's make contact throughout your day. Being in touch with God doesn't have to be only during times of prayer or meditation. It can be while you're on the run. It can be while you're at the gym. It can be while you're in class. It can be while you're walking up the hill. It can be while you're making dinner. When you're in the midst of activities, when you have a moment's break, all these are times to make contact with God throughout the day, to practice that little chit chat, to take a moment and look for Him, to make contact with Him. The sixth and final step is take action when you hear God's voice. If you feel God is guiding you or telling you something, take action as soon as possible. It is scary. It is weird. But that is what having faith looks like. Just take a small step. And sometimes God only reveals the first small step. But I promise that the next step will be revealed. And the next and the next. And that's how we learn to listen. That's how we practice following God's guidance in our life. And then we get to see the spiritual or physical or emotional or relational growth or fruit from following Him. It's kind of like a house, and you have electricity in your house, but until you flip the switch to a light, the light doesn't come on. So in the same way that God's presence and power is with us, until we flip the switch, until we take the action that He calls us to do, we don't really get to witness the plans and the power that He has. And I encourage you, even though it's scary, to try just taking a small step next time you feel like you hear God calling you to action. If you can make these 6 steps or any one of them a regular practice, I think that you will see that your relationship with Jesus will grow. It will strengthen, it will deepen. And it will take time. That's okay. But you'll find yourself gradually learning to recognize God's voice and beginning to trust it. One day you'll realize you're in a relationship with God that is treasured and invaluable in your life. Don't confuse the emotion with the reality. Even with earthly friends, some days you feel closer to them than others, and that's normal. True friendship surpasses the day-to-day emotions of life, and that's the same with our relationship with God. It's not always really high highs. It's a relationship. It ebbs and flows, and that's okay. So, as we go into our time of discussion, I want you to be thinking about what practices have helped you feel closer to God. Or do you desire to feel closer to God? Really, that's going to be what this discussion about is, what are some ways that you can take a step closer to the Lord, that you can build a relationship with Him? What does that look like for you? What does that mean? All right. Have a great discussion. See you later.